7:32. It's Wednesday morning and time to talk with our U.S. Senator, Senator Mike Crapo, joining us from the nation's capital. Well, Senator, it's been a bit. Good to hear your voice. How are things this morning?
Well, the nation's capital, as you indicate, is a different place these days. It's still much of the lockdown that was put in place for the inauguration has been removed, but it's still full of very intense police and still some extensive National Guard presence, and access to the general public is very restricted to most of the facilities.
Is the security heavier, Senator, because of known threats or because of anticipated threats?
I can't tell you for sure. I believe it's anticipated threats. And I believe that the reason they've extended it past the inauguration is because the Senate is now going into an impeachment trial, and there is still a significant amount of division in the country. But there may be there always is, some talk on the internet and things like that the FBI and other investigators don't necessarily let us know about.
Yeah. Well, Senator, let's talk about a couple of issues. I know we have received a number of listener comments. Not real happy. Some of it ranged from concern to just outright anger that you and Senator Risch did not join with Ted Cruz. Also, I believe it was Josh Hawley in not contesting the results, but at least pressing a pause and taking a look at it. Why did you choose not to join that coalition? What was your thinking in that?
Well, I think it was very clear. The effort there was I know it's been described as taking a pause and so forth, but the effort there in this exact vote that we took was a vote to reject the certification of up to 6 of the states. Actually, it only ended up being 2 states that were challenged,
Yep.
and for the Electoral College. And the Constitution is very clear. The Congress is not the entity that determines the validity of a state's electors to the Electoral College. That is the states, and challenges to the state's procedures are handled in the courts. And the very worst thing that could happen, in my opinion, is for Congress to step in and say that it will be the ultimate arbiter of what a state's vote is.
Yeah.
If we did that, then I guarantee you that you would end up having a Congress decide who was president. And that's exactly the thing that our Constitution was written not to allow to happen.
Will there be an effort? Because you're right. I mean, in fact, Rand Paul articulated this pretty well while all of it was going on, and he ended up voting to certify the state results. But he has some very, very deep concerns about how the elections happened in places like Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania. And he even said his plan is to visit each of these states and try and make sure that those elections have integrity. Is that, I would imagine that you're somewhere near the same place that Rand Paul is, that even though it's not Congress at large, their job to remedy this, each individual member of Congress can go out and advocate for a better and more trustworthy voting system. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, at the time, when we cast these votes, I made it very clear that I believe that we need to have a very thorough analysis of the electoral counting system in the states and the federal government's involvement. We do not need to put the Department of Justice in charge of the states, but we do need to have a very thorough look at this, and we probably need to have federal legislation that sets some parameters about vote counting and provides the legal basis for courts to more effectively engage in the process of ruling on certifications that states make.
And I love that idea, but Democrats are in charge of pretty much everything now in the legislative and executive branch. Do you expect anything to move forward on improving elections while we have this dynamic right now?
Unfortunately, no. I wish I could say yes, but as you're probably aware, the Democrats generally have been pushing for years to have the Department of Justice run a greater role in the management of state elections. And if they try to get anything done, it'll probably be to move down that road. And that's a road that many of us have been fighting to stop, and is one of the reasons that we cast our votes on the day we counted the electoral ballots, to make it very clear that this is not Congress's job. So you're right. There will be a push from the left to try to federalize our elections, and that I will oppose.
Yeah.
All right, Senator Crapo, we've got so much to go over, so let's shift gears a little bit. You mentioned the
All right.
article of impeachment that came over from the House yesterday and the pending trial in the Senate. Why don't you give us an update on that and how it's been working with your colleagues with the news switch?
Well, as you probably know, we had the articles of impeachment delivered within the last couple of days. And when that happens, the Senate is required to go into a trial. And yesterday, we did the first steps in that regard. And each of the senators was signed in and took an oath as one of the deciders. I was going to say judges, but I don't think that's the right word, in the case. And a Rand Paul point of order was raised, which I supported, that said that this trial has no constitutional legitimacy because President Trump is not, it's former President Trump, and he is not the president now. And the Constitution is very clear that impeachment is for a president, a vice president, or a civil officer of the nation. And he is now a private citizen. And therefore, I was very supportive of the point of order. We lost that point of order, and so then we adopted an agreement, which fortunately the Democrats were willing to make with us, to give the Trump team more time to prepare for the trial that was inevitably going to proceed. And they agreed to let the trial be held off until February 9th so that the Trump legal team can have more time. As you know very well, the House gave them zero time, and no preparation of the case had been made during the House proceedings.
Senator, I want to ask you, because this is a really interesting dynamic. I thought it was an incredibly politically smart move for Senator Rand Paul to have this vote, because now you got 45 senators, including yourself and Senator Risch, on record saying this trial is not constitutional. Now, you've been very careful, very similar to the impeachment a year ago. You've been very careful not to telegraph or indicate that you've made a decision either way about guilt or not guilt. And you've taken the same approach here. And some in the media, I think it was the Epoch Times, kind of mischaracterized your position on this, which probably created somewhat of a backlash for you. But when I looked into it and I read it, I'm like, no, he's just taking the same position he did a year ago, which is the wise, I'm not going to tell everybody how I'm going to vote on this. However, I do want to ask you this question. If you've already said this trial's unconstitutional, I can't imagine a scenario where you would vote for guilt in an unconstitutional trial. And I guess elaborate on that. Is that kind of a premature assumption on my part?
Well, I wouldn't say it's. Let's put it this way. You are correct. My practice in the past and going forward is that as a juror, or whatever the right category is for a senator sworn in an impeachment trial, that I will not discuss how I'm going to vote, and I will listen to the proceedings. In this case, though, I've already voted to say that I think that the proceedings are unconstitutional. So I think that could give you an indication.
Okay, so there's some validity to my assumption then in this. Yeah, I won't put words in your mouth, Senator, but when we look at this, there were 5: Romney, Murkowski, Collins, Sass, and Toomey that all said no, it's constitutional. We should have a trial in all of this. Do you expect those 5 also to vote the way most Democrats will for a conviction?
Well, I try very hard not to predict how my colleagues will vote, but I can say that the fact that they were open to a trial going forward and believing that it was constitutionally legitimate means that they are open to voting yes. I don't want to start a rumor about them in the media and say
Yeah.
that I think they will or think they won't.
Yeah, gotcha. Also, I guess I had a question about Mitt Romney. Of course, he's been the most vocal Republican speaking out against President Trump. I think it's fair to say he just simply does not like President Trump. But he said that he's studied different case law, and he thinks that the it's overwhelming to him that this is indeed a constitutional trial that's taking place. Do you know what he's reading? Because everything I've seen, most constitutional experts have said you can't hold a trial to kick someone out of office who's not occupying the office.
Yeah, well, let me answer that this way. To my knowledge, there is no case law on this issue. There is some precedent, and that means that the Senate has dealt with this situation on 2 occasions that I know of in the past, where the House impeached someone who was, by the way, in each of those cases, this was either a president, a vice president, or a civil officer of the country. Which distinguishes this case from even those circumstances. But in those cases, when the impeachment proceedings got to the Senate, in the first case, the Senate dismissed the trial before the trial was even held. They just said this. They didn't say why, but most of us believe the reason why is because it was an impeachment of someone who was not subject to impeachment under the Constitution. But they dismissed the trial. In the second case, which is the one that those who rely on, I say case, the second circumstance, that those who rely on saying it's okay to do because there's precedent, the Senate there was a motion to dismiss, and that vote failed on party lines. It was close. It was close to 50-50. It was more like 45-55 in percentages. And so the trial did proceed. But then the Senate dismissed the charges. So that's the precedent, and people can argue that the Senate did proceed on one. By the way, it wasn't a president, and I don't see how people say that the precedent is clear here at all. There are constitutional scholars from all different political and philosophical perspectives who say that it's okay to proceed. And there are scholars who say that it is absolutely unconstitutional. The point is, it's how you read the Constitution.
Yeah. Well, Senator, I know we're very short on time, but real quick, tell us some of the legislation that you'll be working on, and also your committee assignments now that you're in the minority. We thought you'd be in the majority. It didn't work out that way. And so how does that look?
Yeah. Well, I'll stay on the same committees that I was on before. And as you know, I have been, in fact, right now still am the chairman of the banking committee because we haven't had a resolution on the floor to switch the power over yet.
Yeah.
I will probably move my senior position from the banking committee to the finance committee, where I will, instead of being chairman, be the ranking member. But I'll stay on finance, banking, and judiciary and budget. And we hope to get all of that done. As you may recall, I'm the chairman on the Republican side of the Committee on Committees, which is putting all of this together. And we are literally working that out now as we've started to get some progress with Senator Schumer to get an agreement on how to share power when the Senate is 50-50. So I hope we get all of that done soon, and then I will still be doing all the work that I have been in each of the areas that we've been familiar with in the past few Congresses.
Great. Well, Senator, thank you for your time. It's great to chat with you and catch up with you a little bit, and look forward to talking with you again soon.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Take care. 746 on the all-new Newstalk 1079.